Well, it's been a long week in Canberra, so joining me now for his brilliant analysis of the week that was is Nine radio broadcaster Luke Grant. Luke, welcome. They're calling it a bread... Good to see you, mate. They're calling it a bread and butter budget, but last night the opposition leader hit the nail on the head, warning of dark days ahead and accusing the Albanese government of breaking promises. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah. Everything is going up except your wages. Cost of living, power prices, taxes, interest rates, unemployment and the deficit are going up or will be going up under the government's predictions. The same budget papers confirmed that real wages are forecast to go down. And this means that by Christmas, a typical family will be $2,000 worse off under this budget. So you have every right to be anxious and disappointed because the Prime Minister has broken his faith with you.
Luke, what did you make of Peter Dutton's reply last night?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, Gleeson, you and I both know he's got so much ground to make up. I mean, he needs to get people to listen, and whether that's even possible after the coalition were handed their you-know-what 6 months ago, I'm not so sure. But there is a ground, I think, for him. It is amazingly not the general home ground of the coalition, but those low-income earners, the people that are working in the trade sector, etc., that just want some kind of an indication that there's something bright on the horizon. But for a government that was elected to reduce power prices, as you've said, and increase wages, there is a little opening for him. And whilst it wasn't watched by the whole country last night, I think it was a step in the right direction. I don't know what happens with him being soft to Peter Dutton, but and I don't know what the textbook says, but it seemed to me what he had to say last night would have hit a nerve with lots of people, those people that were aware that he was A, talking, and B, what he had to say, mate.
Yeah, indeed. He's got a long way to go. There's no doubt about that. We also saw Labor introduce this Secure Jobs Better Pay bill. Now, this legislation will essentially hand over power to the unions. This is what Dutton said to say about it last night.
Australians were hoping that in this budget there would be a lift to productivity. Instead, Labor's changes to multi-employer bargaining threaten to undermine productivity and will be a throwback to the 1980s.
Luke, it's almost as if Labor's driving us back to the future here. Are we entering a period of possible union chaos?
Yeah, well, we are, and we are because the unions and the Labor Party have got that marriage made in heaven. I mean, under the guise of a thing called the Jobs and Skills Summit, all of a sudden we're talking about multi-bargaining and the unions were back, baby. And I interviewed on Money News on Nine Radio the head of Cosboa, and she was the one that first brought this issue to light because don't forget at the Jobs and Skills Summit, we're all getting together and having a bit of a cuddle so we could save Australia and make up for Naughty ScoMo and all those years. But it seems to me that leading into this, the unions had a chat to Albo and others and say, righto, now you're in government, how do we get more infiltration? And it's simply down to this, Peter, it should be opt-in. If you want to do it and you're a business, opt-in. If you don't opt-in. But, mate, this is a deal I think hatched many months ago to make the unions more relevant, and it stinks, frankly.
You're such a cynic, Luke Grant. There's no doubt about you now. Look, speculation a few weeks ago. No, that's fine. Today, confirmation that 4 women and 13 children are on their way home to Australia after being taken from a camp for 4 Islamic State families in Syria. Now, a total of 17 people crossed the border overnight to Iraq, where they will stay for only a short period before boarding a repatriation flight to Sydney. Luke, the PM refused to comment on this again today, but now we know these IS brides are returning to the country. Surely Australians deserve answers, don't they?
Well, Peter, of course they do. Of course they do. These people deliberately went to another country, and while they were there, the best evidence would suggest they spent that time hating on us. And now they're coming back. We meant to say, that was a few years back now, everything's good. I don't think many Australian people will cop that. You want to give people the benefit of the doubt, particularly the young children who had no say of where they would go and what they would do. They ended up in Syria. So I'm kind of torn here. The benefit of the doubt must go to protecting the people like you and I and Peter's viewers, but there has to be some compassion. I tell you what, Peter, the first time a newspaper camera catches them wearing the wrong T-shirt or doing something, questionable, the whole thing explodes. Albo was wrong. He should have taken us into his trust and talked us through all of this, and I think we, might have been in a better place.
Now, I said earlier in the show that we're sleepwalking into economic oblivion. If we think renewable energy is the answer over the next 30 years, Australia's renewable energy messiah, at least that's how he likes to think of himself, Chris Bowen, he's acknowledged that high energy and gas prices are hard, that's his words, hard, but it's still full speed ahead on his renewables folly. Now, Luke, Matt Canavan, I thought it summed it up brilliantly today in the Courier Mail. He said, if renewables are so cheap, why are prices still going up? He's got a point, hasn't he?
Well, yes. And let's not forget that in the lead up to where we are today, everyone on the government benches, and particularly the Teals, said, this is cleaner and cheaper. Really? When? Now, the Liberals didn't really deliver, and my clear view is that there has to be something done about gas reservation. And Dan Walton from the AWU, God bless him, and others. And I think I spoke to the Treasurer on Tuesday night after he handed down his budget, and he seemed to be a bit miffed with me and my colleagues on Nine Radio saying, well, hang on a moment, you've done all these things. What about people on their pension or people on low incomes wanting to pay their power bill next year? And Peter, I hope I'm wrong, but I simply don't accept the projections. I'll be much worse than that. It is simply this. You want to buy petrol in the Middle East where the petrol is, it's 30 cents a litre. You want to buy gas in Australia where the gas is, we pay what they pay in Europe. We're dumb. We've got to get reservation. There's got to be price controls for the people who own the gas. There has to be some benefit. It's meant to be the transitional fuel.
I agree.
It's not hard. It's not hard, mate.
It's a hoax, Luke. It's a hoax. I can't believe that Australians are putting up with it.
Oh, mate.
All right, now I'm doing the show out of Melbourne. Lukey, I'm doing the show out of Melbourne tonight,
really?
The Socialist Republic of Victoria. Yeah. Now, they've got this election coming up. I'm going to do a little bit of research down here on why Daniel Andrews is $1.10 to win. But we did have a new poll from the Nine papers today, and it shows a drop in support for Andrews. Their primary vote's down 4 points, which is significant, to 38%, yet still an election-winning lead over the coalition. They're down around 31%. So it's looking like Andrews will get over the line. We've got precedents in Victoria. I mean, Jeff Kennett was $1.01 and got beaten. There is precedence. Do you think there's any way the coalition might be able to sneak up and snatch a win?
No. I spoke to a shadow front bench who told me that they're doing much better in regional areas than what the polls would show, and that's where they think there might be some glimpse of hope. But, I don't want to be unkind here, but I don't know how electable Matthew Guy is. He had a crack last time and, got a pizzling. I don't see much different this time. I just think whatever you think about Daniel Andrews, he's the master politician. He has a press conference and that fixes everything. It's remarkable to even say that. But no, mate, I think
he is.
Back.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. I think you're right. I think he will get back. But I've got to say, I think Fred Flintstone would do a better job than him at the moment.
I agree.
Certainly Victoria's firefighters, Luke, they're intensifying their opposition to Andrews.
Yeah.
Here was United Firefighters Chief Peter Marshall. Here's what he had to say today.
Why are we having a press conference here today? The local member, Kat Theophanis, refuses to meet firefighters. 4 times she's been asked to meet firefighters and she refuses to do so. We have a government here, being the Andrews government, that has let firefighters down.
Gee, I'll tell you what, it's rare to see a union turn so hard against a Labor government. What do you think of that?
Yeah. And they did some polling. A third of people, when asked if they'd take notice of this, a third of people said yes, they would. But here's the problem for Matthew Guy. They will have an impact, no doubt, but they'll send Labor votes, first preference Labor votes, across to Labor sympathetic minor parties like Greens and Teals, for example. So it won't change the result. Will it damage Dan Andrews' persona? Well, mate, if the lockdowns didn't, this won't.
Yeah. Absolutely. Luke Grant, it's great to see you tonight as always. Thanks for joining us on Credlin.